Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Just when you think we're finished with all of them, another one might be looming around the corner. What am I speaking about? Well, we're happy to be finished with wars and conflicts. But might we be facing another one soon? Could be. We're crossing our fingers and we are saying our prayers. We pulled out of the war in Afghanistan, the conflict in Afghanistan last year. And we know with wars and conflicts, we need soldiers. And after they have many tours of duties, they return home as veterans and hopefully to a grateful America. On this program today, we're going to talk about our many veterans that we have here in New Mexico, and we're going to be talking about their services. On another program, kind of a two-part series regarding veterans in New Mexico, we're going to discuss the various veterans we've had. How many do we still have? We're talking about the World War I. Anybody still around? World War II. And of course, we have Korea, Vietnam, and our most recent conflicts that you and I perhaps remember even more. And again, we're going to be talking with the Cabinet Secretary regarding the status of veterans in our communities. But on this show, we're going to talk about the services that our state provides, your taxpayer money provides, and also what the federal government provides, the gratefulness that we're showing our veterans as they finally return home. So please stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
The National Education Association of New Mexico, a union of teachers and school staff, believes every child deserves to learn at a school that inspires their imagination, cultivates their curiosity, and ensures a fulfilling life. Public schools should provide all our students with small class sizes and one-on-one attention. NEA New Mexico asks you to join us so together we can end the teacher and staff shortage and invest in our public education system once and for all. Sponsored by NEA New Mexico.
You are fortunate, if you are a veteran, and actually all of us are fortunate to have passionate people who are working in Veterans Affairs, because that means that we're going to have continued soldiers fighting on our behalf because they know when they come home, they're going to be taken care of. And that's all we care about, is that they are taken care of. We've heard about the stories where perhaps the federal government has been a little lax in recent years and not taking care of them when they go to the veteran hospitals and such. But here in New Mexico, we've got very passionate people because they are veterans themselves. And I'm so pleased to introduce you to Robin Wilson. She is the director of Field Services Operations for the New Mexico Veterans Affairs Department, and tells me from her heart she's passionate for veterans because
I am a veteran. I am an Iraq and Afghanistan Air Force veteran and a nurse.
And you know how important it is, more than I can tell our viewers, or more than I know, that we have to treat these folks who fight on our behalf. We're not out there doing it. Well, in this case, you were out there doing it. You were out there doing it.
Yes, yes.
Tell me a little bit about your service, and then we'll get into, again, what we're giving as services to our veterans. But how did you serve our country?
So I joined the Air Force in 1990 as a typical 18-year-old high schooler, just looking for some college money. And I was fortunate enough to have an amazing 20-year career, both enlisted and officer. All of my education was obtained through the Air Force. And when I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, in that environment, it changed my thinking on what the job is of a veteran. And I knew that when I got out, staying loyal to our veterans and their needs was something that I absolutely had to continue.
What changed in you, Robin? And I'm sure you changed in many ways facing a war as you did. Mm-hmm. But what changed regarding veterans and soldiers living it?
So it was their absolute dedication to their brothers and sisters in arms that led to their own self-sacrifice. So my career after I got out of the Air Force went into veteran homelessness and veteran substance use. And so that is really where I kind of picked up, because being here in Albuquerque and walking the streets and talking to homeless individuals, the number of veterans who said, I just don't know where to go to get help. I don't know how to do it. It broke my heart, and I said, I can't leave a comrade behind. I have to do something.
That's the motto, isn't it, of many soldiers?
Absolutely.
Don't leave a comrade behind. And we're thinking perhaps on foreign lands, but you're saying the streets of Albuquerque.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about the homelessness, because, of course, here in Albuquerque, we know it's top of mind. We see homeless, I call them street people, on our corners. We hear about the camps and such, but from the perspective of a veteran and not leaving a comrade, some people aren't, maybe, including myself, aren't as compassionate, because we think, our mindset is, we have services we're offering them. There are things our tax dollars go to, but they're still on the streets. They choose that. What's your perspective of working with homeless people, street people, and in terms of veterans? And the fact that they don't know, that's what you just said was surprising to me. They don't know, because we know there's a lot that we offer.
Sure. So many of the conversations I've had with the Albuquerque homeless and that veteran subpopulation, they tell me two things. They tell me, number one, I don't want to take up a resource from a veteran who deserves it more than I do. So I hear that a lot. The second thing that I would hear is, I'm not ready to talk to the VA yet. And if they're not ready to engage with the VA and hear the services that are available, they really compartmentalize and they internalize everything that they're going through on a mental health or, whatever issue that they have that led to their homelessness. And you don't know what you don't know. And so we have to stay out there.
You don't know what you don't know. That's
Absolutely.
That's true. Were you able to help some of them?
Absolutely. I worked very closely with the Veterans Integration Center, which is the transitional housing program here in New Mexico for veterans. And when you have that veteran who comes in and they say, I'm homeless and I don't know what to do, and we're able to get them housed and able to get them into an apartment and get it furnished and get them some additional education or some job skills, and they get that full-time job and get them service connected with the VA, and they come back and they say, I didn't know a year ago that I would have a car, and I'm so thankful.
Now, is that integration program, how is that related to the New Mexico Veterans Affairs Department?
So it is a nonprofit here in New Mexico. It's in Albuquerque, and they are partially funded through grants through the VA, and then also through private donations as a nonprofit. So that's how they work with the VA, and they work very closely with their HUD-VASH voucher program with veterans.
And the veterans you ran into who did not want to approach the VA Veterans Administration yet, what was the reasoning behind that?
Most of the time what I would hear is, I'm not ready to talk about things that happened overseas. And we have to meet our veterans where they're at. If everything in their life was going perfectly, they wouldn't be homeless. And so just getting them, bridging that gap between, I'm not ready to talk about it yet, but I do need help, being able to bridge that gap for them and get them into permanent, long-term, stable housing is what the Veterans Integration Center does the best.
I'm so glad, Robin Wilson, that we're doing two programs on this, because there is so much to talk about. And I know your public affairs assistant is saying, probably over there, get into all of our programs.
Absolutely.
Ray, is that what you're saying, Racy? Get into the programs. But being able to talk to a veteran, if you can share just a little bit more, Robin Wilson, your experience of what, again, I was certainly not there. I saw it on TV, but what can you share for the next few minutes? And we will get into all your help, but personally, as a nurse in Iraq, and how many tours of duty did you have? And please tell us what you did and what you saw.
Okay, so I was a critical care, intensive care nurse in Balad, Iraq, which is our level 1 trauma facility for the theater, and in Bagram, Afghanistan. And, everything that you can imagine that would encompass are things that I have experienced. But it was the amount of veterans that would come in critically wounded from a firefight, from an IED explosion, who would say, don't treat me, treat him, treat her. I'm okay, but they need your help more. It's that self-sacrifice that our veterans do for their brothers and sisters every single day that, again, led me to saying, okay, so it's not over for me. What else can I do? Because for me, everything is going pretty well in my own life, but that doesn't mean it's going well in everybody else's life. And so how can I bridge that gap as well? How can I make sure that that person on the corner holding a sign that says, I'm a veteran, please help, what can I provide for them?
When you were over there in Iraq and Afghanistan, did you live in a tent, in a building, on a U.S. compound?
So I did. So I lived in I guess you would consider it a hardened structure. It was basically a trailer that was divided into 3 sections with 2 bunk beds. And our bathroom was about, quarter of a mile away from where we lived. And it was definitely not, it wasn't a hotel accommodation by any means, but it wasn't a tent. So it was a hardened facility for me.
But like a trailer?
It was a trailer. Like a Connex type trailer.
Mm-hmm. And your bathroom was about half a mile, so you had to literally run to the bathroom.
Well, you had to run to the bathroom, and you made sure you really, really needed to go before you left. So, I did work the night shift, and so being there and during the day when it's 120 degrees and you're really kind of debating internally whether that's the right time to step outside, priorities change.
How many tours of duties did you have, Robin Wills?
2 in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan.
And how many years is that for each?
So my first tour was 6 months, my second tour was 4 months, and my third tour was 4 months as well.
Well, thank you, of course.
Thank you.
What do you suggest to viewers out there to say to veterans when they see them? Some people say, of course, we appreciate your service, but does that, I imagine it means, but I've heard some veterans say it doesn't mean too much. But what do you think we should be saying to our veterans?
So I actually do like the phrase, thank you for your service. There's no judgment, there's no implication, there's no feeling pressure to answer any questions about what you may or may not have experienced. It's just a simple thank you for your sacrifice and your dedication to our country.
And that does mean something to them.
Absolutely.
Anything else, as I put a little more pressure on you to share with us? Again,
No.
We have somebody in our studio who has been there. Anything else you would like to share, just to give us an idea? I mean, I'm not talking lightly. We had a pull out of Afghanistan. I mean, politically, people are on all different sides of all different fence on that. The heartbreak over that, either way. Grateful to have our veterans home, but how sad after 20 years the United States pulled out. But and again, with Russia, we never know what could be around the corner.
I would say, for me as a veteran, and with that experience, with that lived experience, I would just ask that when you see a veteran, that we don't judge the political climate, the political context. We simply have a group of men and women who share a common desire, which is to support and defend our Constitution and the orders that are handed down by our president. That's what we really want to do. And we don't get involved politically. We do a job that we're asked to do.
Very good. You not only have a passion for veterans, all veterans, but women veterans. You worked with women veterans as well.
I did. So before I accepted this position, I was the Women Veterans Program Manager for Department of Veteran Services. And here in New Mexico, I had the opportunity to travel the state and talk to women and kind of identify why women in New Mexico, have some of the barriers that they have.
What type of barriers are you talking about?
The first barrier that women have is their identification as a veteran. Someone along the line has told them that if you didn't retire or if you didn't deploy to a combat zone, that somehow you are not a veteran. And so, I would talk to these women and I would say, tell me who you are. And they would tell me, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a student, I work, here, I work there. And then somewhere down the line, they would say, oh yeah, and I was in the Air Force or the Army. And I would say, well, that makes you a veteran. And they're like, well, no, because I didn't retire. And I would say, but that still makes you a veteran. And so changing...
But men tend to say, I see a lot of men who, one of the first things, if they hear somebody else was in a conflict or in a service, they'll say, I'm a veteran, immediately. Immediately.
So I used to call that the intersectionality of identity. We as women, we tend to put our children as our kind of crowning achievement. That's what we are. We are mothers. And so, somewhere just a little bit further down the line is, I'm a veteran. And so to that, I would say if you served, you are a veteran. And so let's talk about what you might be eligible for.
So let's start with that in terms of, start with the definition of a veteran then. It's not someone who has served 20 years and retired.
So it isn't. That is not the definition of a veteran. A veteran is any individual who has served at least 1 day of active duty federal service and who is not dishonorably discharged. And then certainly it gets broken down into a couple of additional caveats from there. But if you had 1 day on active duty and you were injured, some people might tell you, oh, well, you're not a veteran because you served 1 day. But that's not the definition of a veteran. If you were injured in the line of duty while you were on active duty federal service, you are a veteran.
And so are all the services open to that person? The people who have not retired as veterans, are all the services the same?
So they're not quite the same. There's a couple of different definitions of veteran depending on the program, for example. Some of those are set by our state legislature, some of those are set by VA, some of them are set by whatever the organization is that they're working with. And so one of the kind of frustrations is that I might be a veteran, at the Department of Veteran Services, but if I went somewhere else and asked for something, they might use a different definition. So standardizing that definition would be something I would really love to see happen.
And we have services from the state and from the federal government. And we're going to run through them in this show and in another show, but let's start with what's on top of the news is, again, our Afghanistan.
So our Pact Act.
Brothers and sisters have returned home.
So it's actually also encompasses our Vietnam veterans as well.
Okay.
So
the Pact Act.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So the Pact Act has been passed, and the new law says that there are 23 additional presumptive conditions that the VA will look at and say, yes, we understand that these are directly related to service, whether it's Vietnam or burn pit exposure or, Iraq and Afghanistan. The other thing that it did is for our Vietnam veterans with Agent Orange is it increased the country of service. And so it used to be you had to have been in the Republic of Vietnam to get approved for an Agent Orange condition, and now that's been opened up to Cambodia and Laos and other countries. And so
that took 40, 50 years to do this?
Took a little bit of time, but we're there now.
It took quite a while.
Yes, and unfortunately, we have lost some of those veterans, but one of the things that we're working very closely on is identifying those veterans that may have passed, whose widows may be eligible for some benefits now. It's a little late, but we're going to advocate very fiercely for them.
Tell me a little bit about the burn pit portion of this Pact Act.
So the burn pit portion is and not to kind of go into too much detail about, what a physical burn pit is, but there was a lot of exposure, a lot of things that were burned in these burn pits in Iraq, Afghanistan, that ended up causing respiratory and cancers later on.
Well, we were burning what?
Everything.
As we withdrew.
No, it was
during.
Yeah, we didn't really have garbage dumps at the time, and so to get rid of our trash and debris, we burned it. And so the smoke that was generated by these burn pits, they've now realized ended up causing some conditions that need to be service connected because they are directly related to your service. And so things like rhinitis, some respiratory cancers, things like that. It's mostly, with the burn pit, it's mostly respiratory because it was an airborne contaminant. So, yeah.
What are the challenges from all the soldiers who returned home from Afghanistan? I mean, in the past year, there's a lot more that returned to New Mexico.
So I think those challenges are multifocal. How do they transition out of the service into civilian life? How do they get in touch and be on these registries? So our burn pit registry and our Gulf War registry are created through Department of VA, and they are there to keep track and to keep our veterans informed about what's going on with conditions if you were exposed to burn pits or to Gulf War syndromes during Desert Storm. And I think sometimes we forget about our Desert Storm veterans as well, but the Gulf War syndrome is definitely an area that we want to keep front of the pack as well. So these registries allow VA to talk to veterans and let them know things that are coming up, changes, conditions, things that they might be able to be service connected for. And sometimes it's just being able to acknowledge, hey, I didn't have this before I went and I have it now. Is it something that would have happened normally? Is it something related to my service? And a lot of veterans question that, and they're just not sure. And so having these registries and having Department of Veteran Service who can answer these questions and file these applications for service connection for them gives them a little bit of peace of mind when they come back and they're like, okay, so it's not in my head. I really was exposed to this, and this is what has happened afterwards. And sometimes it's just that acknowledgement that it is an actual condition that is service connected.
Robin Wilson, is there anything else regarding the Pact Act you'd like to share? Because there's a lot of other things we're going to be covering today as well.
So what I would like to share is, again, this does open up not only the locations, the geographic location, the time frames, but the 23 new conditions. My message here would be, if you have been denied previously for any of these conditions, we now have something that we can waiver and do an additional appeal or a supplemental claim. Please call us. Our VSOs are ready to answer questions for the Pact Act, and we are certainly ready to fight for everything that you're eligible for.
Should they be contacting the state of New Mexico or the VA in DC?
So you can definitely contact us at Department of Veteran Services, and we will get you in touch with either a VSO in your region, or if you prefer, a specific type of VSO, whether it's male or female, we can get in touch, with that as well. You don't have to live in the same community as your VSO. COVID has taught us that we can do a lot of things virtually and through the telephone, and however we can best support our veterans, in New Mexico, we're a very rural state. If you can't come to us, we will figure out how to get it to you.
Robin, can you point out a few of those different conditions, a few of the new 23 that might be surprising to some of us that are on the list?
So there are quite a few cancers. I think that's the biggest one. But something that was a surprise to me is rhinitis, just the constant running nose from airborne contaminants.
Okay, something that we're thinking is our allergies, but
Correct.
It could be something different. So again, if you've been denied, please contact them. Other big changes, I think, regarding our income taxes that we pay, New Mexico veterans pay here in the state of New Mexico.
So excited this year, our legislator and our governor signed into law that we will be graduating into getting the retirement pay a tax break, and that will start at $10,000 and then $20,000, $30,000 until it's fully graduated, I believe 2026. And so again, our governor and our cabinet secretary said, how can we make the state of New Mexico more veteran friendly? How do we thank them for that service? And it's an amazing opportunity for our veterans who lived on that fixed income, just to have one more perk that says New Mexico thanks you for your service.
Yes, and appreciates you. You don't have to run off to other states.
Absolutely.
I know I worked in the state legislature many years, and our state senators worked very hard.
Absolutely.
Year after year. It makes sense. Our neighboring states, everybody else is doing this. We want to keep these talented people here.
Yes, and New Mexico actually has a large, especially in our native community, a large per capita rate of veterans. They come from New Mexico. Please come back to New Mexico.
You get a break on your income tax, what you pay in your income tax. We're going to do another show with you, Robin, but in the few minutes we have remaining, great website that shows a lot of the services that a lot of the benefits that veterans receive. What would you like to share? Some of the most popular ones.
So I do think that our property tax exemption and our tax waivers would probably be our most popular state benefit. Our hunting and fishing licenses, our discounted parks passes, our disabled veteran license plates, all of those things definitely highly sought after by our veterans, but they're amazing. Who doesn't like to be behind the veteran who says, you know, there's my license plate, I served.
Any other services you'd like to share? We're talking about benefits. I was talking about benefits, but the services.
So we do have another service that we have, and I was able to hear the update this morning on our highly rural transportation grant, which is run out of Department of Veterans Services through our healthcare division, and they have been renewed on their VA grant to provide transportation to VA medical appointments to 15 highly rural counties, which has been funded through the VA for another year. So we're very excited about that as well.
And that's an example of someone lives in Hobbs or outside of Hobbs in a smaller community. I remember there's Pye, New Mexico, and Weed, New Mexico, and all these little communities. How would this program work for them?
So there is, they would call our transportation coordinator, who is in the healthcare division, and do a very brief intake, your name, your appointment, where you're from, and as long as you live in one of the 15 highly rural counties that the VA has designated in New Mexico, they will do their best to coordinate a date, time, and transportation to get you to and from your appointment. And that's not just in Albuquerque. Some of our veterans, especially on our borders, they go to Amarillo, they go to El Paso, and we can get them there to those appointments out of state as well. So it's very exciting.
Because we know, all of us know, even if we're not a veteran or if we don't live in a rural area, it is difficult to find medical services this time, in this day and age.
Yes, difficult, and even now with the inflation and the price of gas, even if you're on a fixed income, driving all the way to Albuquerque 3 hours away, sometimes just not feasible. So we're happy to provide another service for our veterans.
Robin Wilson, you're excited about this.
I am.
Yes, I can see your smile. Thank you so much for being a part of this program. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Not only abroad, but here in our state, as we discuss the New Mexico Veterans Affairs Services. And we'll be back with you and hopefully your cabinet secretary to discuss veterans and what they mean to all of us and what we can provide them. Thank you for watching this program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. We hope you make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
In the Army National Guard, family means everything.
Our parents, they were really supportive that all 5 of us would join. I got my education because of the Guard. I got to travel a little bit and experience a whole different culture. It helped me get my job, helped me pay for my house. Being part-time really helped because I could have some opportunities that were still in education.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard instills pride that you and your family will share. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.